What's up? I'm Lily Revenge Crown brings you the stories that keep you hooked. If that sounds good, smash subscribe and let's go.
The crystal chandelier in the country club ballroom cast warm light across 47 guests celebrating my parents' 30th anniversary. My mother wore pearls. My father wore his successful businessman's smile. My sister wore a 3-carat engagement ring she'd shown to approximately 39 of those 47 people. I wore the same dress I'd bought on clearance 4 years ago. "Emma, darling," my mother had said when I arrived, her eyes scanning my outfit with practiced disappointment. "You couldn't have worn something newer? Your sister looks so polished." My sister Victoria was indeed polished. Designer dress, professional blowout, engagement ring catching every photon of light in a 12-foot radius. She was 27. I was 31. In my family's mathematics, this meant she was winning. "The dress is fine, Mom," I'd said. "If you say so." That tone. The one that said nothing was fine actually, but she was too gracious to say it directly. I'd learned to stop caring about that tone around the same time I'd learned my parents would never actually see me. Uncle Stephen arrived late as usual. He was my father's younger brother, the one who'd made his money in pharmaceuticals and never let anyone forget it. But unlike my father, Uncle Stephen had always been kind to me. Genuine. He remembered my birthday. He asked about my work and actually listened to the answers. He found me near the dessert table, loading a plate with chocolate-covered strawberries I had no intention of eating. "Emma." His voice carried across the room. Several heads turned. "How's business after that $2.9 million FDA approval? I saw the announcement in the industry newsletter last week." "Congratulations." The room didn't go quiet exactly, but conversations definitely paused. Forks hovered. My sister, who'd been describing her wedding venue to a captive audience of 3, stopped mid-sentence. My parents, standing near the anniversary cake, exchanged a look I'd seen 1,000 times. Confusion mixed with something sharper. Panic maybe. My father's voice cut through. "What approval?" I calmly set down my fork. Picked up my wine glass instead. Took a slow sip while Uncle Stephen, bless him, continued as if he hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of my mother's perfect party. "The FDA approval for your cardiac monitoring system," Uncle Stephen said, his smile widening. "Chin Biomedical, right? Class 3 device approval is huge, Emma. That's not easy to get. How long did the whole process take?" 3 years, I said quietly. My mother's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You have a company?" Let me back up. I was 16 when I realized I was invisible to my parents. Not literally, of course. They saw me. They fed me, clothed me, sent me to school. But they didn't see me. Not the way they saw Victoria. Victoria was the golden child. Pretty, charming, good at all the right things. Tennis, piano, socializing with their country club friends. She went to their alma mater, majored in communications, joined the right sorority. I was the odd one. The one who took apart toasters to see how they worked. The one who got a full scholarship to study biomedical engineering at a state school they'd never heard of. The one who preferred textbooks to tennis. Emma's very focused, my mother would say at dinner parties, the pause before focused, doing all the heavy lifting. The subtext, she's not like Victoria. We don't quite know what to do with her. When I graduated summa cum laude with my engineering degree, my parents came to the ceremony. My father checked his phone during the speeches. My mother asked when I was planning to get a real job instead of more school. I was starting my PhD. When I earned my doctorate at 26, my father said, "That's nice, sweetie. Victoria just got promoted to senior account manager." When I got my FDA certification for biomedical device supervision, one of only 200 people in the country with that specific qualification, my mother said, "Is that something that pays well?" I stopped telling them things after that. "You have a company," my father repeated louder this time. Other conversations had definitely stopped now. 47 pairs of eyes were watching us. "I do," I said. "Since when?" 5 years. My sister's voice sharp. 5 years? You've had a company for 5 years and never told us." Uncle Stephen, finally picking up on the tension, looked between us uncertainly. "I assumed you knew." "Emma, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "It's fine," I said. "Really?" It wasn't fine. Nothing about this was fine. But I'd learned to smile through discomfort the same way I'd learned everything else. by watching my family pretend everything was perfect when it absolutely wasn't. My father crossed the room in 5 long strides. What kind of company? Medical devices. Cardiac monitoring systems specifically. And this? FDA approval. My mother's voice was faint. Class 3 device approval. It means our monitors can be used in hospitals for high-risk cardiac patients. We've already secured contracts with 6 hospital systems. The number I didn't say, $2.9 million in projected first-year revenue. Uncle Stephen had said it. They'd all heard it. Victoria's face had gone very pale. You're making almost $3 million? The company is projected to generate that in revenue, yes. Revenue isn't profit, my father said quickly as if he'd caught me in a lie. No, I agreed. After operating costs, salaries, equipment and facility overhead, net profit will be closer to $800,000 this year. Silence. My mother sat down in the nearest chair. The thing about being invisible is that you learn to build your life in the spaces no one's watching. I started Chin Biomedical in my garage apartment when I was 26. I had $12,000 in savings, a doctorate in biomedical engineering and an idea. What if we could predict cardiac arrhythmias 72 hours before they happened? The sensors I designed monitored heart rate variability patterns too subtle for standard monitors to detect. Early intervention could save lives. The technology was solid. The market was there. What I didn't have was support. I didn't ask my parents for money. I knew what they'd say. That's very ambitious, Emma, but maybe you should get some industry experience first. Victoria's company is always hiring for their analytics department. I didn't tell them when I filed the patents. Didn't tell them when I got my first investor meeting. Didn't tell them when I hired my first employee. A brilliant engineer named Marcus who believed in the technology as much as I did. I didn't tell them when we moved from my garage to actual office space. I didn't tell them when we started clinical trials. I didn't tell them when the FDA granted us fast-track designation. And I definitely didn't tell them when we got final approval 3 weeks ago. Because why would I? They'd never asked what I was working on. In 5 years, not once had either parent said, "Emma, how's your career going?" They knew I did something with medical equipment. That was the extent of their interest. Why didn't you tell us? My mother's voice trembled. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the genuine confusion in her face, as if this was somehow shocking. As if she couldn't possibly understand why I'd kept this from them. You never asked, I said simply. That's not fair, Victoria snapped. You deliberately kept this secret. I didn't keep it secret. I just didn't volunteer information to people who've never shown interest in my work. My father's face darkened. That's not true. We've always supported. When I got my PhD, you compared it to Victoria's promotion to senior account manager. I was just saying. When I published my research on cardiac monitoring in the Journal of Biomedical Engineering, Mom asked if it was one of those magazines nobody reads. My mother flinched. When I got my FDA certification, which took 3 years of specialized training and examination, you asked if it paid well. You didn't ask what it was. You didn't ask what I'd accomplished. You asked if it paid well. Emma, Uncle Stephen said softly. Maybe this isn't the time. No, it's fine. I set down my wine glass. They want to know why I didn't tell them. I'm explaining. 47 guests weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. For 5 years I've worked 80-hour weeks building something from nothing. I've secured 8 patents. I've presented at 4 international conferences. I've hired 12 employees. And not once, have either of you asked me how work was going. You could have told us anyway, my father said. Why? So you could compare it to whatever Victoria was doing? So you could find a way to make it about her. Victoria made it sound like I'd slapped her. That's not fair, my mother whispered. Isn't it? Name one accomplishment of mine you've celebrated in the last 10 years. 1. Silence. You can't, can you? But I can name Victoria's. All of them. Because you talk about them constantly. Her promotion. Her engagement. Her apartment. Her everything. We're proud of both of you, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. You're proud of Victoria. I'm just, there. The other daughter. The weird one who likes machines instead of people. Uncle Stephen cleared his throat. Emma, for what it's worth, I'm incredibly proud of you. What you've built is extraordinary. Something in my chest cracked. I'd spent so long not needing my parents' approval that I'd forgotten what validation felt like. Thank you, I managed. The industry newsletter had a whole piece on your approval process. They called your technology groundbreaking. Which it is. My mother stood up. I think we should discuss this privately. No. My voice came out harder than I'd intended. No, we're not doing this. We're not going to have a private conversation where you tell me I'm being dramatic or unfair. This is the first time in my entire adult life that you've had to actually confront the fact that you have 2 daughters, not 1. Emma, that's enough, my father said. Is it? Because I don't think it is. I think I've been quiet enough. I think I've been understanding enough. I've spent 31 years being the background character in Victoria's story. The sister who exists to make her look better by comparison. That's not true. Victoria's voice broke. I never asked to be compared to you. I know you didn't. This isn't about you, Vic. It's about them. I looked at my parents. It's about the fact that you raised me to believe I was less important. Less worthy of attention. Less deserving of pride. My mother's eyes were wet. We never meant. It doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what you did. The party didn't recover from that. People made excuses and left early. My parents stood near the cake, shell-shocked. Victoria cried in the bathroom. Uncle Stephen found me in the parking lot 20 minutes later. That was brave, he said quietly. That was probably a mistake. No. It needed to be said. He paused. I really am proud of you, Emma. I've been following your company's progress for 2 years. I actually considered investing, but I didn't want to overstep. I laughed despite myself. You could have called me. I didn't think you'd want family money. I wouldn't have. But it would have been nice to be asked. He nodded. Your parents are going to want to talk. They're probably going to want to invest now too. I know. What will you tell them? I looked back at the country club, at the warm lights and the perfect facade. I'll tell them the same thing I've been telling them my whole life. The truth. They just might actually have to listen this time. 3 days later my father called. We'd like to invest in your company, he said without preamble. Whatever you need. I don't need investors. We're fully funded. Emma. I'm not angry anymore, Dad. I was, but I'm not now. I'm just tired. Silence on the line. I spent my whole life trying to be seen by you. And now that you finally see me, it's only because Uncle Stephen put a dollar amount on my work. That's what it took. Not my doctorate. Not my patents. Not my innovation. Just a number big enough to get your attention. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's true. Another long silence. Your mother and I, we want to make this right. Then start by asking me about my work. Not my revenue. Not my projections. My actual work. Ask me what problem I'm solving. Ask me why it matters. Ask me anything that shows you're interested in me as a person, not just as a suddenly successful investment opportunity. He faltered. I don't know what you do, Emma. I should, but I don't. It was the first honest thing he'd said to me in years. Then that's where we start, I said. We didn't fix everything over one phone call. We probably won't fix everything ever. 30 years of being invisible doesn't disappear because of one conversation. But my father came to my office the following week. He asked questions. He listened to answers. He looked at my patents, my prototypes, my team. This is remarkable, he said finally. You built all of this yourself? With help. I have an incredible team. He nodded slowly. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm sorry we didn't see you. It wasn't enough. But it was something. My mother took longer. She called 2 weeks after the party. Victoria says I need to apologize, she said. Do you think you need to apologize? Long pause. Yes. Okay. I'm sorry I made you feel invisible. I'm sorry I compared you to your sister. I'm sorry I didn't ask about your work. Thank you. Can we start over? I thought about it. About 31 years of being the other daughter. About 5 years of building something beautiful in the shadows. About finally being seen. We can try, I said. Victoria and I had coffee last month. I'm sorry, she said immediately. I know Mom and Dad's treatment of you wasn't my fault, but I'm still sorry. I should have noticed. I should have said something. You were living your life. I don't blame you for that. I blame me a little. She twisted her engagement ring. Can I ask you something? Why didn't you ever seem to care? About their approval, I mean. You just did your own thing. I smiled. Oh, I cared. I cared so much it nearly broke me. But eventually I realized something. I could spend my whole life trying to be someone they valued, or I could become someone I valued. I chose the second option. I think I'm jealous of that. Don't be. It was lonely. Yeah, she said quietly. I bet it was. Uncle Stephen sent me a bottle of champagne last week with a note. To the brilliant Dr. Chen. Thanks for keeping things interesting at boring family parties. I laughed until I cried. Chin Biomedical is expanding. We're hiring 6 more engineers. We're opening a second facility. We're in talks with 3 more hospital systems. My parents know about all of it now. They ask questions. They listen. They're trying. It's not perfect. May never be perfect. But I'm not invisible anymore. And that $2.9 million? It's just the beginning.